Welcome into another edition of Just the Truth. Glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio to lose the weight for the last time. Visit myphdweightloss.com. Here's what we're going to cover today. At least 5 people were shot. 1 child has died after a school shooting Thursday morning in a small town in Iowa. Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy went viral on social media for his response to a reporter's question asking him if he condemns white supremacy and white nationalism. And former Ambassador Nikki Haley is back in the headlines again. She's facing criticism from her GOP opponents and some Iowans over a comment that she made to a New Hampshire audience suggesting Iowa starts the election process and New Hampshire will correct it. She didn't get quite the response she had expected from some from Iowa. Leonardo DiCaprio, Bruce Willis, and Michael Jackson are some of the A-list celebrities' names that appear in a large collection of newly released documents relating to Virginia Giuffre's lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein's former lover and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. This is a list you really don't want to be on. And tipping has gotten out of control. One TikTok user is drawing the line. A TikTok user named Justice has taken to the app to rail against tipping culture, revealing a list of places where she'll no longer be leaving a gratuity.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Let's start with an update from yesterday where at least 5 people were shot. Unfortunately and sadly, 1 child has died after a school shooting yesterday morning in a small Iowa town. Police responded to reports of gunfire at Perry High School around 7:37 a.m. yesterday morning before classes had begun on what was the first day of school after winter break. When officers arrived at the scene less than 7 minutes later, they found multiple gunshot victims. The suspected shooter was identified as Dylan Butler, 17 years old, who was a student at the school. Mitch Mordvit, assistant director at Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation, said at an afternoon press conference, Butler was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. 4 of the surviving victims were taken to hospitals, with 1 in critical but not life-threatening condition and 4 in stable condition. 4 of the surviving victims are students and 1 is a school administrators, according to authorities there. Dallas County Sheriff Adam Infant earlier told reporters that the shooting happened before the school day began. Infant said, luckily there was very few students and faculty in the building, which I think contributed to a good outcome in that sense. Authorities also found a rudimentary improvised explosive device inside of the school, which was rendered safe. Mordvit added that at the 4 p.m. press conference, without going into any more detail, that could have had a different outcome. Butler had a pump-action shotgun and a small-caliber handgun on him, and he made social media posts around the time of the shooting, according to authorities. The Sheriff's Office, Perry Police Department, FBI, and Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms is responding and investigating the shooting. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds said at an afternoon press conference, our prayers are with the entire Perry community, adding that the shooting has shaken our entire state to the core. Every Iowan stands with you. She said that investigators will work tirelessly to get the answers to why the shooting happened. Perry is said to be a town of about 8,000 residents. The high school is part of the 1,785-student Perry Community School District. Our prayers certainly with Iowans and those families affected by this horrible shooting. Back to presidential politics. Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy went viral on social media for his response to a reporter's question asking him if he condemns white supremacy and white nationalism. Now, here's what you need to know. Ramaswamy, in response to a question from a Washington Post reporter, said that questions and framings like that are what have caused the American people to lose all trust in the mainstream media. I don't think the Washington Post reporter quite expected this response from Mr. Ramaswamy. She pushed back at Ramaswamy saying, "You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy." Here's the exchange. Now, it's a little long, but you need to hear all of this. It's important, I think, that we have more candidates like Ramaswamy pushing back against the mainstream media and putting them in their place.
Condemn white supremacy and white nationalism?
I mean, who are you with? Which Washington Post. All right, so potato. Okay. Of course, I condemn any form of vicious racial discrimination in this country. But I think that the presumption of your question is fundamentally based on a falsehood that really is the main form of racial discrimination we see in this country today. Institutionalized racism is institutionalized racial discrimination that we see that doesn't come from somehow discriminating against people on the basis of some tenet of white supremacy. It's based on affirmative action. It's based on actually discriminating against people on the color of their skin in a way that's actually institutionalized today. Was there a point in our history, at points in our prior national history, where there have been vicious forms of anti-black or anti-brown discrimination throughout this country after the Civil War and otherwise? Yes. But you're looking in the rearview mirror and using that to pose a question today that is so far removed from what the reality is in America today. This myth of white supremacy, the closest you can find is Jussie Smollett, where you all were actually, speaking of trust in the media, jumping up and down over some false narrative. The best way you're able to find your best instance of white supremacy was a guy who was actually paying his other fellow people to be actually staging something that didn't happen.
Good point,
and
isn't
so
it?
Stop picking on this farce of some figment that exists at some infinitesimally small fringe of the American public today to open our eyes to the actual real threats that we face. And I think that it's frankly questions and framings like that that has caused the American public to lose all trust in the mainstream media, I'm sorry to say, for good reason.
And let's pause it right there. He's right, isn't he? I mean, he makes a good point, and kudos to Vivek Ramaswamy for pushing back and letting this lady, who's obviously looking for a headline, putting her in her place. We need more of our candidates doing that, don't we, with the mainstream media. He continued.
You didn't say that you condemn white supremacy, though.
I'm not going to recite some catechism for you. I'm against vicious racial discrimination in this country. So I'm not pledging allegiance to your new religion of modern wokeism, which absolutely fits the test. I'm not going to bend the knee to your religion. I'm sorry. I'm not asking you to bend the knee to mine, and I'm not going to bend the knee to yours. But do I condemn vicious racial discrimination? Yes, I do. Am I going to play your silly game of gotcha? No, I'm not. And frankly, this is why people have lost trust. And I know you're going to go print the headline tomorrow. I already know this. We already know how your game works. Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to condemn white supremacy because you asked a stupid question. The reality is, I condemn vicious racial discrimination in this country, but the kind of vicious and systematic racial discrimination we see today is discrimination on the basis of race in a very different direction. You want to know what the best way is to end discrimination on the basis of race? Stop discriminating on the basis of race. Do that, and we're going to move this country forward. And I don't care whether you're black or white or brown or anything in between. That's how we're going to unite this country. You people have been responsible for dividing this country to a breaking point, creating a projection of national division. I meet people from the south side of Chicago to meetings like this one of every shade of melanin, multiple, from man to woman, doesn't make a difference, who are hungry for reviving unity in this country. And you, with your catechism that you try to get to politicians to whatever fake headline you're going to print on the basis of this conversation tomorrow, that's what's dividing this country to a breaking point. Shame on you. Look people in the eye and tell them what you've actually failed to tell them for the last 5 years. Own the accountability for your own failures as the media. That's how we rebuild trust in this country. And until then, I don't have a lot of patience to play the games.
I agree. Shame on her for asking such a stupid question. And again, whether you support Vivek Ramaswamy or not, you got to give him credit on this one. He put them in their place, and we need more like this. By the way, and you didn't hear it in that clip, but Ramaswamy received applause from the crowd after he finished his answer. His response to the question quickly went viral on social media, with conservatives praising the way that this 38-year-old entrepreneur handled the exchange. Sports and political commentator Jason Whitlock posted on X, "This man is incredible. Wow." Author and political commentator Ann Coulter, also on X, "Absolutely magnificent. Every GOP should memorize this answer." And she's right. The other candidates need to push back too. My colleague Charlie Kirk wrote on X, "Vivek gets it, leveling up in real time, based And then former Arkansas governor and presidential candidate Mike Huckabee on X. Good for Vivek Ramaswamy, who gives brilliant response to stupid question from biased and unprofessional Washington Post reporter. The question from the reporter came in response to former Iowa GOP Congressman Steve King's endorsement of Ramaswamy. King, you may recall, made headlines in 2019 when he was stripped of his committee assignments by fellow Republicans in Congress after controversial comments regarding white supremacy. Ramaswamy addressed the interaction in his own post on X when he wrote, "After Steve King announced he was endorsing me, predictably a lame reporter from the Washington Post tried to get me to play the game of denouncing white supremacy. While she refused to actually define white supremacy, which in recent years encompasses concepts like punctuality and the written word, I refused to play along with her game." In another post, Ramaswamy wrote that the question was the stupidest question I've gotten yet from the media, and that says a lot, he said. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You agree with Ramaswamy? You agree that it was a stupid question, right? And maybe if other candidates, Republicans and Democrats, would push back like this on these reporters, they'd stop writing those headlines. They'd stop trying to get that gotcha moment. Again, what a stupid question. And a good answer from Ramaswamy, too, because, racism, the left wants everybody to think that racism is white people discriminating against people of color. It works both ways. The recent short-term president of Harvard, Claudine Gay, she wants to introduce racism in the fact that she had to resign from her position. But she's been a big part of racism herself. She's one of the ones who has led the efforts at Harvard discriminating against white students getting into the school because she wants minorities, she wants people of color to take their place. 864-477-5639. Love to get your comments on the Truth text line. You can also leave a quick voice message. And as always, your emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So Jeffrey Epstein's documents that have been released name A-list celebrities, including Leonardo DiCaprio, Bruce Willis, Michael Jackson. They're among some of the celebrities' names that appear in a trove of newly released documents relating to Virginia Giuffre, or is it ga-frae? Virginia Giuffre. Her lawsuit against Jeffrey Epstein's former lover and accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Epstein had many high-profile connections. We've seen that. It's come out publicly. Before all this started, I'd never even heard of him, had you? But evidently he smoozed with former U.S. presidents, former prime ministers, Britain's Prince Andrew, Hollywood stars, leading academic leaders, people in the modeling and fashion industries, and other public figures. Now, I never have come to realization of how he made his money. And I'm not sure anyone else has either. There was this mystery around what actually Jeffrey Epstein did. Some of the names were previously known through other means, despite having been withheld from the public eye in this lawsuit. Many of the names belong to people who have not been accused of wrongdoing, and you need to understand that. Just because their name was mentioned in this lawsuit doesn't mean they did anything wrong. Some actually had never even met the man. Here's a look at some of the celebrity names that were mentioned in 40 documents or so. Naomi Campbell, for example. In a deposition dated May 3rd, 2016, Ms. ga-frae described going on foreign trips with Maxwell and Epstein, including trips to France. On one trip to southern France, ga-frae claimed that she had sexual contact with Maxwell before attending a birthday party for supermodel Naomi Campbell. ga-frae clarified in her deposition, "We were going to Naomi Campbell's birthday party. The sexual encounter wasn't at the birthday party, she said. In 2019, Campbell explained that she did know Epstein and that she had been introduced to him through her ex-boyfriend. Campbell said in a video uploaded to YouTube, "What he's done is indefensible, and when I heard what he had done, it sickened me to my stomach just like everybody else because I've had my fair share of sexual predators, and thank God that I had good people around me that protected me from this. Right now, I stand with the victims. They're scarred for life." Campbell was responding to photos of herself with Epstein, saying, "I find it extraordinary that all of the hundreds of thousands of people that I've stood next to take a picture at a public event, they're only chosen these few." Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, Bruce Willis, Cameron Diaz. Again, names mentioned doesn't necessarily mean that they were friends or close to Jeffrey Epstein. Accuser Johanna Schoberg spoke with Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, Bruce Willis, and Cameron Diaz during her deposition. She mentioned them. All four celebrities were brought up during the same line of questioning, mostly in passing. None of them are accused of anything wrong. And I need to stress that. They are not accused of wrongdoing. Schoberg claimed when asked, "I did not meet them. No, when I spoke about them, it was when I was massaging Mr. Epstein. He would be on the phone a lot of the time, and one time he said, 'Oh, that was Leonardo,' or 'that was Kate Blanchett,' or 'that was Bruce Willis,' that kind of thing." Schoberg noted that Epstein was name-dropping the celebrities and that she had not met any of them. Later, she was also asked whether she had met Cameron Diaz, to which she responded, "No." Representatives for DiCaprio, Blanchett, Willis did not respond to questions. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, was mentioned once in the newly released documents as well, again from Ms. Schoberg. She denied meeting the filmmaker and said there was no suggestion of wrongdoing. A representative for Lucas, again, did not respond. Michael Jackson was also mentioned by Ms. Schoberg. She confirmed that she met the late pop star at Epstein's Palm Beach home, but claimed she did not massage Michael Jackson. A representative for Jackson's estate did not respond to questions. Then there was Kevin Spacey. He was named also in the documents with Ms. Schoberg, denied ever meeting Kevin Spacey, the star of House of Cards. Spacey was previously named by Epstein's former pilot, Lawrence Visosky, during testimony for Maxwell's sex trafficking in 2021. He claimed that Spacey had once flown on one of Epstein's planes. Again, no response from Kevin Spacey. And let me stress one more time that just because their name was mentioned doesn't mean they did anything wrong. It's just it's one of those things where you'd rather not be mentioned at all. Former Ambassador Nikki Haley is facing criticism from her GOP opponents and some Iowans on the grounds over a comment she made to a New Hampshire audience suggesting Iowa starts the election process and New Hampshire will correct it. Now, what could she have possibly meant by that? Didn't go over too well with some folks from Iowa. First, let me tell you about PhD weight loss and nutrition. Do you find yourself eating at times when you're really not hungry? That's called emotional eating. Maybe you're stressed out, you're worried about something, and you go to your favorite. My emotional eating was with chocolate. I'm a recovering chocoholic. I love chocolate. I've always loved chocolate. But one of the things that I learned after meeting Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition is how to control that and how to control the portions of the foods that I eat. Over 3 years ago now, I was introduced to this program, and it's based on the science of nutrition. They taught me about what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. I lost 30 pounds pretty quickly, and for over 3 years now, I've been able to maintain that. And that's the important thing, because how many times have you heard of someone losing weight on a program only to gain it back pretty quickly? PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. If this is a year that you want to lose the weight and you want to keep it off, let me encourage you to call right now, 864-252-4925, 252-4925. Schedule your consultation and see if this program is right for you. You can find them online as well at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. So, Nikki Haley campaigning in Milford, New Hampshire this week, got in a bit of hot water again. And here's what Haley told this large crowd listening to her stump speech.
We have an opportunity to get this right. And I know we'll get it right. And I trust you. I trust every single one of you. You know how to do this. You know Iowa starts it. You know that you correct it. You know that you continue to go. And then my sweet state of South Carolina brings it home.
You can certainly see why folks in Iowa weren't very pleased with that, right? It didn't sit well with some folks who will be Iowa caucus goers in just a couple of weeks, and possibly leaning towards Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Mark Putney of Fayette County, Iowa, said in response to Haley's remark, "Rooted out of our history of hardworking Iowans, Iowa has always been a pulse of the nation, where the term heartland comes from. Nikki Haley's comments are an insult to Iowans like myself who take pride in being the first in the nation caucus. The next president must be someone who appreciates Iowans, not belittles us due to her poor performance in the race." Brenda Sandberg of Benton County, Iowa, said, "As an Iowan and a caucus goer, she has offended but not surprised me. Nikki Haley has shown herself to be a completely out of touch with most Americans, and she has no business being president of the United States." Lori Tiango of Polk County, Iowa, said, "I'm sick of elitist politicians who think they know better than the people who they're supposed to serve. It's Miss Haley who needs to be corrected, not us, and our voices will be heard on January 15th. Governor DeSantis addressed the issue in a radio interview on KFAB yesterday, saying, "I think it was incredibly disrespectful to Iowans to say somehow their votes need to be, quote, corrected." DeSantis said, "I think she's trying to provide an excuse for her not doing well. You know, her allies and her have spent a huge amount of money here. A lot of this money coming from liberal donors on Wall Street and from California," he said. "These are people that have supported liberal Democrats in the past, and they gravitated to Nikki Haley because they know she's not going to change anything in Washington." He went on to say she's been governor for 6 years. What achievements does she have in South Carolina? Literally nothing. Her main achievement was being the #1 Republican governor for bringing Chinese investment into her state. It's a huge contrast to the leadership of Governor Reynolds or myself, but I thought what she said to the Iowans was very disrespectful. Now, in response to a request for comment, the Haley campaign pointed to reactions from Iowa caucus goers supporting Haley who were unfazed by what they called the lighthearted joke. Austin Harris, for example, is an Iowa state representative, saying it was a lighthearted joke playing up the rivalry between Iowa and New Hampshire. Her opponents are clearly desperate because she's rising in the polls, and they're terrified, so they will grasp at anything. This is what we like about Nikki. She's a real person. She's not scripted. Emily Smith, general counsel at Suck Up Manufacturing. And her opponents are attacking her based on an offhand remark. That's more proof of what we already knew, that she's got the momentum and the support of Iowans. Iowa State Senator Chris Cornyor said the media outrage on this, like other things, is completely detached from reality on the ground in Iowa. Nikki Haley continues to win over caucus goers ahead of January 15th. She's done over 70 town halls in the state, taking questions directly from folks. The bottom line, Haley is positioned to do very well on caucus day. According to the latest poll, Haley is polling at 16.1% in Iowa with about 2 weeks before the Iowa caucus, which puts her in third place behind former President Donald Trump at 51.3% and Ron DeSantis at 18.6%. On the Truth text line, some of you took issue with Karine Jean-Pierre claiming that prescription drug prices have come down during Biden's time in office. Now, I mentioned this in yesterday's edition of Just the Truth, where Karine Jean-Pierre, in response to a question about the national debt, and her answer involved saying that the fact that prescription drug prices, according to her, have come down rapidly under Joe Biden's leadership. Now, what that had to do with our national debt rising to $34 trillion, I have no idea, but that's what people are responding to. She claimed that because prescription drug prices have come down, I guess we shouldn't be as concerned about the debt rising. Tony wrote, Joey, she said prescription drug costs has come down. Is she so stupid she doesn't realize how much she lies? My wife's prescription cost hasn't come down. It went up from $46 a month to about $80. This administration is so delusional. Susan wrote, I've got news for you. KJP, prescription drug prices have not gone down. A friend's prescriptions, even though they're all generic, cost her a lot more since Biden was installed. Faye writes, Joey, from what I'm reading, Trump and his lawyers have concerns that the Supreme Court may side with Colorado and Maine. If they do, justice will not have been served. Trump has not been convicted of insurrection. Without the right verdict, the flavor of our country will no longer be a republic. We will be no better off than any third world country. I just can't imagine. Well, Faye, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen in November anyway, so don't be discouraged. Don't be worried about that. Our text of encouragement today, all growth depends upon activity. There's no development physically or intellectually without effort, and effort means work. God bless. Thank you for that message. Your comments are welcome as well on the Truth text line, 864-477-5639. Text me a quick message, leave me a message, or send me an email, joey@joeyhudson.com. A TikTok user named Justice has taken to the app to rail against tipping culture, revealing a list of places that she'll no longer be leaving a gratuity. Are you kind of getting fed up, too, with all the places who expect you to tip? Portions of today's show brought to you by my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff with no appliance knowledge? You're not going to get that when you go to Pickens and talk with my friend Jeff at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have many different options, brands, features. You know, it's kind of tough figuring out which one's right for you because there's so many options out there. You go to one of the big box stores, they just point you to aisle 39, and you stand there and stare at a row of refrigerators. You're not going to get that treatment at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have nearly perfect reviews on Google. The team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have all the knowledge that's needed to make sure that you have confidence in your purchase. They'll show you around the warehouse. They'll show you all the options you have, 1,500 appliances or so at any given time ready for you to take home or ready to be delivered to your home. They have an award-winning service department, expert installation, and extended warranties. They have you covered well beyond the sale. Let me encourage you, if you're in the market for a new appliance, there's no other place that you need to go but Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So, from the New York Post, justice is served, but she's not tipping is the title of this. A TikTok user named Justice has taken to the app to rail against tipping culture, revealing a list of places that she'll no longer be leaving a gratuity.
Tipping culture is out of control. This is a list of people I'm not tipping in 2024, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm not tipping at the drive-thru. I'm not tipping for Froyo. I'm not tipping for Auntie Anne's. Yes, they ask for tips there now. And,
you know, it's amazing some of the places that ask for tips now, and the way they do it with their point of sale device, they just turn the screen around, and there it is. Choose 15, 20, 25, 30%, 35%, and they stand there and look at you and want to make you feel guilty if you choose no tip. She went on to say, I know that hostesses have such a huge problem with this. It's just my opinion, and yes, I've been a hostess and a server in my past life. She continued to say she absolutely will not be tipping anyone who sets their own prices, such as beauty service professionals, reasoning that the business fee and the tip would all go to the same person and they would get 100% of the profits. Do you tip the person, your barber, for example? Is she right that some of these folks should not be getting a tip? They charge you what they want to charge you up front and build in that tip. Meanwhile, those who need a medical qualification or license to administer a service also made her list of people that will not be getting tips from Justice this year. She specified medical cosmetic procedures such as Botox and laser hair removal as 2 examples. She said it goes against the code of ethics to accept tips for these types of procedures. Now, reactions to her comments were kind of split, surprisingly. Some agreed with the frustrations. Others thought that maybe she's a bit crazy. One person exclaimed, "Agreed, I detest the tipping culture here in the U.S." Another question, also, why are the tip options 25 to 35%? One commenter quoted, "At this point, I'm going to start asking service providers to tip me for being a loyal, punctual, and amazing customers." Now, others push back. Some question her list, saying that Justice was being too harsh on certain sectors providing services. One wrote, "The beauty service one is crazy. Yes, they're getting 100%, but if they're the most likely paying for color, booth rent, foils, etc., they deserve it." Another said, "Wait staff, nail techs, and tattoo artists always deserve to get a good tip. Anyone else is totally optional to me." Some servers even got in on the conversation themselves. One declaring, "I've been serving for almost 6 years, and tipping has gone way out of control. It's ruining it for us who actually live off of tips." Another wrote, "As a server who relies on tips, it's absolutely insane what it's turned into. Wait staff, nail tattoo artists, hairdressers, and delivery drivers is it." Another said her viral video comes amid a backlash of tipflation, which is hurting my business. And she's right. We do. Tipflation is a good way to put it. As the expectation to tips expands into coffee shops, takeout stores, and the one that really gets me, self-checkouts. Have you ever been at a self-checkout at one of these coffee shops, for example, and they ask you for a tip? Despite requiring zero interaction between customers and employees, self-checkout machines at venues like coffee shops, bakeries, airports, sports stadiums, they're being programmed with the option to leave the typical 20% tip or more. Again, I love it when they just when it pops up. Some of them start at 25%. A survey conducted in June of last year revealed that 2/3 of Americans hold a negative view of tipping, and 1 in 3 Americans think tipping culture is out of control, like this young lady said in her video. For Generation Z in particular, only 24% always tip hairdressers, hairstylists, or barbers, according to the survey, compared with 40% of millennials and 67% of Generation X. They also are less likely than baby boomers to tip when getting food delivered, 31% compared to 62%, or using a taxi or rideshare service, 22% versus 56%. Now, I actually, thinking about that, when I use Uber, I do usually leave a tip with my Uber driver. I don't know why. I guess maybe we need to rethink all this, huh? Results found that tipping in all kinds of settings is beginning to fall. Some blame it because it's gone too far, including dine-in restaurants, hair salons, hotels, coffee shops, taxis, rideshare vehicles. It's also declining for food delivery and takeout. So who do you tip? Love for you to send me a quick note on the Truth text line. Who do you believe should get a tip and who should not? You agree with this young lady? 864-477-5639, 864-477-5639. That's it for today's Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list, go to joeyhudson.com. click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Appreciate you spending part of your day with me. Help me out by forwarding this edition of Just the Truth to a friend or two or three. Help me spread the word so that we can create our little community here together. Keep your comments coming on the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY, and keep your emails coming to joey@joeyhudson.com. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm back on Monday. Hope you'll plan to join me then. Have a wonderful weekend. And remember, folks, God's got this. He's still in control.